Good morning, listeners. So, this is editor Micah here, starting off the episode. And one thing I need to note is that at some point my computer crashes, and so the audio is going to switch from my good audio to the Zoom audio. So, whenever you hear that switch, I don't want to break up the episode, so I figured I'd just throw it here at the beginning. But that's what happened. But don't worry, it gets back to normal by the end of it. I would also like to note that because of all of the insane amount of things that I am doing right now, a lot of this episode is going to be largely unedited. I do my best to edit where I feel like it needs to, especially when there's a big cough or something. But just to let you know, if it moves a little slower than our other episodes, we're just having a conversation and this is how it naturally flows. So hope you can stick around for that. I think we have some really good conversation today, and I don't want to take too much more of time, so let's roll the intro.
Hello, listeners. This is Josiah.
And this is Christian.
And this is Micah, and welcome to the Morning Ponderings podcast.
A podcast where we explore the possibilities allotted to us by our limited knowledge and understanding.
We do so in the early times of the morning, especially today, where we are up before the sun has risen.
It's starting to rise on my end.
Yeah, we're trying to get empathy or something.
Yeah, something about empathy for other people and viewpoints and stuff. Yeah, empathy.
Something like if you've been here for any if you've been here for any amount of time, you know what we're talking about.
Something three idiots, something empathy, something have pity on us.
Mystery in life. Okay, yeah. Welcome.
Yes.
Welcome to our podcast.
Oh yeah, the mystery of life. That's right.
That's what we do. This is who we are, and welcome to the chaos.
Yes, indeed. So how has everybody been? It's I haven't talked to you guys in a month.
I know it's been
you talked to
forever.
me on Monday or something like that.
Are you talking to me that I talked to you? Or are you talking to Micah that he talked to you?
I'm talking to you because I talked to Micah.
Who's you? Okay.
The Christian.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay.
The person who was speaking to me, and then I responded to him directly.
Oh, that's
I'm
right.
sorry.
We talked about the D&D thing.
Yeah.
Cool.
How's that coming along?
Oh, great.
My voice just did a weird thing.
I homebrewed a sorcerer, wizard, warlock combination.
Cool.
I'm kidding. I wanted to see your face to see if you were okay, that's a lot to handle if you haven't played D&D before.
Dude, I jumped into D&D and was immediately how much can I make a Frankenstein monster out of these classes and races? And I think that eventually my very first character was not even a race that was in the player's handbook. It was in some obscure D&D magazine. And then eventually I made another character that was a dwarf dragonborn hybrid that was a warlord or whatever. And so
nice.
I mean, do what you want.
I actually am already letting somebody be a fairy, which is that's a very, very, very new class. It's in I forgot what book it's in, but it's in a book. But I found some homebrew variants of that race because I didn't feel like buying the book.
There you go.
So I'm just using those because they're on the D&D 5e wiki. And then I'm letting somebody else do a animal human hybrid for a race, and I was I'll just it's a cat human hybrid, so I was I'll just give you +2 to dexterity and some dark vision or something like that. That suit feels not overpowered, balanced, and fun.
Yeah, man. That's how I tend to do it. Just fly by the seat of your pants and make those random decisions. I once developed an entire system to go along with one of my wife's characters. She I did a prison break campaign once, and her character ended up being the drug dealer. And I came up with this whole system for how the players could she grew mushrooms in this underground prison, and the mushrooms had various different drug-like properties. And so I had developed this whole system on the spot for how the players could utilize that to get certain types of mushrooms and the kinds of dice they had to roll to see how potent they were, how many they got. And also I had a thing for if you guys if it doesn't make sense with the plan that you're putting together right now to break out of the prison, then you'll have to just roll a luck roll to see if you actually happen to have those kinds of mushrooms. But if it makes sense with the plan, then I think it makes sense that you would have premeditated growing them. So then it's just a matter of, you have them, how potent are they, and how many did you manage to grow? But like random systems like that, lots of fun.
Yeah, sounds like it. They're all just creating their characters now, so I am, because we couldn't get together for a few weeks, and I was like, I kind of want to do your character stories, because otherwise my world building, like NPCs are just going to be like fetch quests or whatever, and like that's boring. Like I want to do like character related stuff. So yeah, no, it's a lot of fun. One of my friends is actually gonna come over today, and we're gonna home build or build some characters. So or build a character. Yeah,
man.
Nice.
You're making me want to start playing some D&D. I have not played enough D&D recently, and my content on my TikTok shows that. Like, started off a bunch of D&D content, and then suddenly it's just like,
Nope.
just ragging on Christianity.
Yeah.
I am lost, and I'm sure some other people might be. But hey,
That
it
is
sounds
totally
like fun,
fine.
and I would love to join y'all sometime whenever I don't have a house baby to be working on.
Yes. I mean, we mentioned at one point about doing a one-off or something.
We did.
And I still need to follow through on that. So that's on me.
I still would love to, but to give you
Hey, Noah
perspective.
plays D&D. We could do one off with him too, and yeah.
To give you perspective on how my life is going, I went to bed last night at about 1:00 because I was at the house until almost midnight, and then I got up at 5:30. Oh yeah.
Oh my
So
goodness. Yeah,
my
that's
coffee, I'm done already. I made it like less than 20 minutes ago, and I'm done. So
we need to get you a deeper cup.
apparently,
I actually went with not drinking coffee because I got 3 hours of sleep, and I was like, yeah, I'm just going to go back to sleep after this.
I worked today, so
Oh my goodness.
Okay.
I cannot. Yeah.
You poor souls. Oh man. Wow.
Yep.
I mean, I didn't force you into coming to today's episode. So
Yeah, I
No.
wanted to be here. Yeah. To also give more perspective, me and Josiah, which I guess by the time this episode's released, that episode will be released. But we recorded last week, and I hadn't even saved the file until this morning. I hadn't even saved the file.
a little bit of a risk, don't you think?
Well, yeah, I mean,
Power could go out and then it's just gone.
Luckily, autosave. Don't worry, it always autosaves. So it probably autosaved, 5 minutes after we recorded. But like, yeah, it was just untitled. There you go. That was the file.
There you go.
Like, I better save this as something I can find.
Oh boy.
And my body.
So
hurts.
how is the house putting together coming along, Micah?
It's coming along. It is way more work than I had anticipated. It's way more work than we thought we were going to do. And we keep making spontaneous decisions that increase our work. And finding out, whenever you like get new cabinets and redesign your kitchen, that means you might have to move outlets. How do you do that? I have no idea, but we did it last night. Luckily, my wife's dad.
Glad you're still here.
Yep, that's true, because I was cutting electrical wires in the attic, which that was a new experience. That was something new. We had to add an outlet, which I was like, how do you just add an outlet? And what do? You take a wire from an existing outlet up in the attic, you cut it, and you splice because you got two sides. I'm trying to use visuals, but I realize this is a podcast. You got if you cut it in half, you got two sides of the wire.
Yeah, why don't you show all the podcast listeners how that works?
Let's just do some simple math. You cut a wire in half, you got two sides, right? So then you're gonna add, another wire. So now you've got three that you've got to tie all together and take wire nuts and just crank them on and splice together. So now you've got another outlet. You got to push that wire down the wall, poke a hole in your wall, and hope you can find the wire once you push it down. And then, yeah, that's did some of that last night, and that was like fun, but breathing in fiberglass and now still
Oh
itchy
boy.
from fiberglass is pretty fun.
Mm.
Of just all the attic insulation. Yeah,
Time to
and
exfoliate.
my body hurts, and but we got so much done. So like we're getting. See, I was about to say we're getting to a point where we're getting close to like being able to move in, but then spontaneously yesterday, I was at this beautiful place called Cargo Largo, where you just find some of the best, cheapest stuff because it's like I don't even know where they get their stuff. If it's overstock, if it's donated, I don't even know. It's like damaged goods and like that kind of stuff. But there was a big pallet of flooring. And I was like, that looks like nice flooring. And I checked it out, and it is nice flooring. And so I bought all of it. And we are now replacing all of our flooring in the entire house. That was not part of the plan, but we're doing that now, which is another big project. So
sounds like you got a lot on your hands there.
Yeah. Yep. That is an understatement. So that's how it's going. We actually have 2 rooms done. We're getting carpet on Monday in 2 rooms. And so those rooms will be done, like the 2 bedrooms, which is nuts. So then it's just the living room, the bathroom, and the kitchen. And the living room's coming along. Honestly, it just needs flooring. And then the kitchen is a disaster, and it'll get there. The bathroom won't need a crazy amount. Oh my gosh, it's coming. It's a big project though. Huge project.
Slowly but surely. And it's been a month, but I can't recall any of the things that have happened in my life.
Oh my gosh.
It's too early. All I know is
what did you do anything fun last weekend?
I mean, my dad's birthday was yesterday, so that was cool. We all hung out with the family, so gotten some time to hang out with fam for a few different occasions. I did sadly discover that for whatever reason, my 10-year-old gaming laptop can't, or is, for some reason it won't run Halo Infinite, so that makes me sad.
Oh, well, it is.
And my brother's talking about how
old.
fun Halo Infinite is.
I think at 10 years you're about to have to put it down.
No, I can't. I don't want to. I refuse.
Hey, at that point, any laptop is an upgrade almost.
I don't know. This is a pretty good laptop. Its specs are still relevant to this day.
Wow. Okay, that's impressive. That's all I'll say. That's really impressive.
Yeah, there's definitely new laptops that are not gonna run a game as well as whatever laptop he has. You're not gonna go grab a Chromebook and be like, all right, time to play Halo.
I don't even consider Chromebooks laptops because they're basically tablets with a keyboard.
I mean,
no,
but
they're not the same. Nope, because their operating system is like a tablet.
Okay, new topic today, guys. We're talking about the nuances of technology.
There. What are we talking about? The difference between Apple and Windows?
Nope, Chromebooks and everything else.
Oh, Chromebooks and everything else.
No, it's totally okay. Earlier when Micah was doing the wire thing, I lost him when there was suddenly a third wire, and I just stopped paying attention.
Wow. I was really impressed with myself and how I didn't kill myself cutting wires and splicing them together. Okay, well.
No, I'm proud of you. Yeah, I'm proud of you. I just following the information.
The fact
is just
that
not a thing for me.
he disconnected and zoned out is just a testament to how impressed he is, because it was just like, well, this would go over my head, so it's a good thing you did
it. Oh man. Well, yeah, appreciate it. I guess I don't know.
You're alive. That's what counts.
I'm alive. Yeah. I don't know. Has everyone recounted their last couple weeks? I don't even know. I mean, my couple weeks have been just work and house. I think
so.
Basically.
Any recording?
Oh, no. I sent my book to my beta reader, which is super exciting. Because that is the 4th draft, is having the beta reader take a look at it, and then she's in my target audience. She's 12, so like she's in my age range basically. One of my friends. I don't just know a 12-year-old. It's the daughter of one of my friends. And And yeah, she's gonna take a look at it and let me know what she thinks, and then I'll make some revisions. And then
Hey,
agent time.
Nice.
I almost forgot that amid talking about the D&D stuff, because ever since I sent it off, I was like, well, that's off my plate right now. So time to hyper fixate on
There you
something
go.
new and creative. So I've been like writing like a D&D story and world building and stuff like that. And yeah, like last Sunday, I just like completely zoned out of like being a social creature and just like hyper fixated on world building all
Wow.
day.
Hey, man. Sometimes you just do what you gotta do.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like, it was a really weird mood for me. That was after Micah came over, and I had like a few friends over too, and like we all played Cards Against
Yes.
Christianity.
Which if you're like, is that a game? It is a game you can create. So there's this game out there. If you haven't heard of it, it's called Cards Christians Like. It was a GoFundMe that was backed way way over what they had asked for, and I was part of backing that. And it's basically Cards Against Humanity, the Christian version. But like, I'll be honest, it's actually on its own pretty funny. Because it's
It
like
definitely necessitates a bit of a familiarity with Christian culture
It
and like
does.
that background.
And also like a willingness to make fun of Christian culture, because it does. So like, it's like you could play it with your youth group or whatever, but as long as everybody there is cool with like
Yeah,
making
Yeah,
fun
it's
of
definitely one of
themselves.
those things where it's like it's not outright like it's not outright making fun of and like disrespecting Christianity. It's more of those, hey, you got to learn to laugh at yourself kind
yeah,
of
like
games.
it's funny that
Yeah, it's like just self-deprecating humor.
yeah, and it was made in 2020, so it's got a lot of pandemic jokes. It's got a lot of so it's not all like inside Christianity jokes, though some of them are like cards that say like the worship leader skinny jeans, or singing the bridge of this song over and over again. You know, some things you have to be somewhat familiar.
Oh yeah, repeating the bridge again to create a
That's
spiritual
probably
moment.
definitely.
I think that's what that card
But like,
is.
there's some pretty funny things. So when we say Cards Against Christianity, that's whenever you take what would be the black cards in Cards Against Humanity, but in this game they're blue cards, and then you take the white cards from Cards Against Humanity, put those together, and it is a good time. And sometimes it is way too accurate and awful. And that is so.
But yeah, we had like eight, maybe not eight, maybe like 7 people playing it, and it was just it was a good time. But also, it was a lot of social interaction. So the next day, I was just like, I'm not a social creature today.
And I laughed so hard that like have you ever just like laughed so hard that like you have no energy left? Like it was like, man, that was really funny, but now I want to just sleep. It's like that's yep.
Yeah, I absolutely.
Those are some of the best times.
Yeah. Just before we get into our actual topic today, Christian, you asked if I had done any recording. The answer is no. I am still planning on finishing this album, but I do have a deadline on this house, and as I keep adding projects, the deadline isn't being pushed back. I still have to be done by the deadline, because we're living with Anna's sister. She wants to come back to a house that we are not living in, and that date's not being pushed back. So I got to get stuff done before she gets back.
Do you think you might do the thing where you hyperfixate on the most essentials to then tackle the smaller bits after you've already moved in? Like, what are the things we need to get done to live in this space? Let's get that done first, and then we'll fill in the rest afterwards.
Yes. Well, that is kind of what we've been doing, but now that we've added putting new flooring in, that is something you definitely want to do before you move in, because there's no furniture to move out of the way, and I guess there won't be dust everywhere. But so far there is just dust everywhere. But we haven't started doing the flooring yet, so we're trying. But my gosh, there's just a lot to do.
Well, best of luck to your sanity and also to your muscles.
Yeah, they're dying. They are dying.
Speaking of muscles.
Yeah.
I just popped my back. It felt
Oh,
really good.
interesting. I've never seen that strategy for back popping before.
For the not two people that did not see what I just did, I have like these weight bands, and I had them stretched out, and I pulled them behind my back, and like I guess the flexing of the muscles like realigned my spine. Nice. It was really nice.
There you go.
It's my fidget tool, so that I don't click pens and make Micah literally lose his sanity.
Yes.
While trying to edit this.
Much appreciated.
All right, and with that, cue the music. How about you introduce our topic and throw out a question, I guess? Because this was your idea.
Okay. This topic was my idea. Okay. So I guess like the question that I wanted to explore was, to me, it's really important in the deconstruction community. This topic, I think, comes up a lot, but like whose authority do we accept when it comes to talking about the Bible, or really talking about anything? I think that's I think it kind of falls into the same category, but like really in the most broad sense, like when it comes to this stuff, who do you listen to, and how do you know who to listen to?
Yeah, that's one of those tough questions. And like from my personal experience, like I'm still not completely sure the best approach to that. So the approach that I just kind of defaulted to was to hear as many voices as I could. Like basically, I aimed to make a scatter plot graph of information, so to speak, to like assign a visual to my strategy, and that I have points of info all over the places from hundreds of conversations and a bunch of different like resources and things that I follow. And I kind of just like looking for that trending line. So I think as much diversity of information, especially if you're looking at information that's like disagreeing with other information. So not just number of different voices that you're considering, but also the quality and the diversity in sides and perspectives. Like I definitely take as much, the more the better kind of approach, but that can get a little overwhelming sometimes.
Yeah. So I guess maybe a question to throw in here is like, Christian, using you as an example, like where, like, I guess, how do you determine what then in that scatter plot is the quality and who?
I think, I think I get what you're getting at. Cause like there are definitely people that like you don't necessarily want throwing off your graph. Like I'm not going to throw in Kenneth Copeland's like opinion on the Bible when it comes to literally anything. Actually, Kenneth Copeland, literally nothing that he says is anything that I want to hear.
Yeah.
If he's right, somebody else will say it, so I can get it from somebody else. So people like that, like it's very easy for me to say that and be like, okay, we all get this. He's like a creepy person that doesn't believe what he says.
He's a mega church pastor who is just a pretty awful person. He's the one who tried to blow COVID-19 away. To give you all a reference for that name, Kenneth Copeland, that's him.
Yeah. He's the guy that looks like he's dead inside.
All right.
Yeah. So like, but like, how do we decide? But like, it's easy for me to say that, but like when it comes down to it philosophically, somebody who's maybe not as easy to attack or discount, like, how do we, I guess, like, how do we go about philosophically justifying who we listen to and who we don't? You know, I think I kind of have a method, but I also think it's a really interesting question that maybe some people need help with. So
It's a really good question.
yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think, oddly enough, scientifically, it's a lot easier. Like when you're looking into matters of science, it's a lot easier to try and figure that sort of thing out, because when it comes to scientific findings and scientific studies, if somebody makes a claim in the United States, then somebody in New Zealand can look at their research paper or whatever and replicate whatever it is they tried to see if they're telling the truth or if they're full of crap. And so you have all of these independent scientists and scientific papers, which are supposed to be as detailed as possible, such that the experiment can be replicated, who can access that information, replicate that information, and confirm or deny it. And so at that point, if you want to look at like qualifications, which is kind of difficult to verify, you just kind of, in a way, have to take the internet's word for it. And peer reviews, like different people saying, oh yeah, this person is qualified. I went to college with them and we did this research together. So, I mean, there's a few different things you can look to, but like you kind of have to put those pieces together to get an idea of like, oh, okay, so this scientific finding is probably legitimate because it was replicated in these different locations. But I mean, not everybody even has the time to do that, especially because there's, in the information age, scientific claims being thrown out every which way every day. You might come across like 10 of them before you go to bed.
Yeah, and then you'll see studies that never. Okay, so this actually may be important for anybody who's looking into studies. I learned this about it. Like if you find a study online and you're wondering how legit it is, I forgot what website it is, but like there's places where you can check how many times it's been referenced in other papers, and the more times it's been referenced, the more reliable it is.
Potentially.
If it's been referenced as evidence, and because what I'm saying is I'm not saying like papers, I'm saying like other studies, like other people, like as in it's been peer reviewed. The more peer reviewed it's been, the more reliable
that's a website?
it is. So yeah, I forgot. I'll have to go back and check. There's an account that I'm friends with on TikTok called Your Summer Camp Crush. Surprisingly, not a whole lot of content about why she's my crush, but a ton of content about communism.
Oh, that explains why she's your crush.
But
there
she was talking
that explains
about
everything. Like, I mean, come on.
Yeah, exactly. No, actually, yeah, you're right. That's it. That's all of it. But yeah, no, that is important. The number of times it's been reviewed. But is there, okay, now I'm thinking, is there a way that we apply that to?
Yeah, so I mean, to me, that
ideas?
sounds like something
Micah,
is more reliable or more trustworthy based on consensus and the amount of people who are like trying to verify what that person is saying and say, like, you know, what you said does correlate with reality, either quite tangibly in a very scientific way, but then even getting out of science, then maybe that correlates to reality because that resonates with a lot of people, or because I'm trying to think of like other examples. Like it's something that maybe we just don't find contradictory evidence for. Like I feel like science is kind of the easy one just because it's like just other people can study it. Like they can do their own independent studies and verify. Yeah, it's more tangible.
Like tangible.
And it's a little more unbiased. Like of course there is biased science, which is why we get a lot of disagreements. It's less biased because people can change their opinions, and like it has to be proven. Like that's the whole thing, is like you test it and you try to prove something is true or not.
Replicability.
Yeah.
Yes.
Of course. So we've been talking a lot about like when it comes to authorities regarding like scientific studies and things like that, which is a lot easier. And it felt like we were starting to then move into more the nuances of other kinds of studies, such as biblical studies or theological, spiritual studies. And of course, that gets into a realm that is a lot less reliable to like replicate. You can't really like replicate stuff. There's a lot more opinion involved.
Yeah.
And it's really, difficult. Something that I have come to understand about my position spiritually, which I mean, I think I kind of had this understanding before, but like I kind of lost it in the noise and then rediscovered it, like the
Yeah.
words for it. But like my I honor the possibility of spirituality and spiritual forces being at work in the world. I don't necessarily believe that there are spiritual forces at work in the world so much as just I honor the possibility. And the thing is that honoring of the possibility is not necessarily a decision based in reason. It's a decision based in preference, my personal preference. I get something from it. And because of that, I don't have any expectation that anybody would agree with me or do the same.
Yeah.
But the thing is that spiritual side of my life, that spiritual consideration is subservient, or it is on a, it holds a lot less weight. It always comes second to scientific findings, second to reality. Basically, my spirituality at this point has become an invitation for me to live more intentionally. And so it causes me to reflect upon my situation, to reflect upon my decisions and the consequences and the fruits of those things, and then make intentional decisions that are founded and based in real life from there. So I don't know if that like makes sense, but basically I'm not just assuming something because spirits and then doing something that makes no sense in reality. Spirituality is enabling my observing of reality to then make decisions that make sense within that reality, if that's another way of putting it. But I think that's the risk you kind of run when you start to dive into spirituality and start holding that against scientific findings and things, because there's this tendency to swing one way over the other, despite the fact that you can more reliably like test and replicate scientific findings than you can opinions about spiritual matters or holy books. What are you guys' thoughts on that?
I think spirituality gets into really interesting territory, and especially talking about like even an authority and like who has the authority to say what is true and what is not. Like there does become a lot more subjectivity to it. And even like you said, like you engage, it's not like it from what I'm hearing, it sounds like you engage with spirituality with a sense of not having a ton of authority. Like, I guess, authority once again can fall on a spectrum of like, even like,
I think a good way of putting it
Yeah.
is that my knowledge and everything regarding spirituality is dependent upon me. And so I don't consider myself an authority on that. And so I shouldn't view spiritual matters and spiritual conclusions that I draw as authoritative. So unless it's coming from a absolutely authoritative source, which I think would just be God himself, which would be tough for me to even know, because it could just be an immensely spiritual power or immensely powerful spiritual being that's claiming to be God. So, I mean, even then it gets a little gray. But unless it's coming from a source that I can know for certain is authoritative, my honoring of spirituality cannot take authority in almost any situation.
Yeah.
So one way that I think about it is philosophically, like if you study any school of philosophical thought, when somebody is trying to teach you about philosophy, the best philosophy teachers are people who do not assert that their view on the world is the correct one, nor do they assert that they know everything about every philosophy. If somebody does assert that kind of knowledge, I find it very hard to take them seriously. Because what was it, Lao Tzu that said, the more you know, the more you realize that you don't know, or something like that.
Yeah.
And I mean that's not just a saying, that's actually like extremely true.
Oh, absolutely.
But when people claim that kind, and people do this with the Bible, that they make statements that assert that their interpretation is correct, and that there's no other like nuance that can be added to it. There's nothing to explore. It's just, I'm right, and if you disagree with me, you're wrong.
Yeah.
And so I think about like some of the people that I have listened to, and like some of the people that I've taken my opinions from, like Marty Solomon, David Bentley Hart, Reverend Mary, people who are like, she came to mind because I saw she commented on one of your videos.
Yeah.
People who are like very open to the discussion aspect and like parsing out the details. Even like, I think I mentioned Pastor Craig last week, who said something like, if I'm the only person that you get your theological opinions from, then you're not studying the Bible. Because he had the self-awareness to know that he's not like the authority on the Bible.
Yeah. So I think it's interesting. Like it sounds like all three of us, because I would agree with a lot of things that you both are saying. When it comes to like science, there is kind of a sense of having like, I wouldn't say an ultimate authority, but you do definitely have like very high authorities of like who can say what is true and good. Like with science, there kind of is a sense of like, not like an ultimate authority, but there definitely is like higher authority. But it seems like with spirituality, all three of us kind of are like, maybe like there is no ultimate authority, and people will claim having ultimate authority, like saying my interpretation of God or of the Bible is the correct one, and if you disagree with me, you're wrong. Like pastors claim that, theologians claim that, but maybe a more honest way of spirituality is realizing like the more we learn, the more we don't know. And so the less we can claim ultimate authority, because we start to realize like, how can I claim to have ultimate authority when there is just a huge amount of information that I just can't know for certain, or even just can't know in general. And so
I feel like up till that point, there's this deification of the human mind that happens.
Yeah.
Where suddenly you equate your understanding and interpretation and the extent of your knowledge of God that you probably got from the Bible if you're a Christian, you equate that to God himself. And like, even though you might not say that or recognize it openly, you will defend, like, if somebody comes to you and their theological opinions, interpretations, and understanding differs from yours, you will fear for that person's salvation. You will fear for that person. It'll cause turbulence and it'll rile something up within you, because if they question your understanding, in your mind, you're going to equate that to questioning God.
Yeah.
I mean, not everybody, but there are just people out there. There's lots of people out there where that is true, whether they would admit it or not.
Like they won't say it in that way. They'll say like, oh no, you're contradicting the Bible, or like you are going against what God has clearly said, right? And so like, but that is your understanding and your interpretation of what is said in the Bible, which maybe wasn't even, it wasn't handed down.
To begin with.
Well, it wasn't handed down.
It definitely
by God.
Is a lot with like how we're raised in, especially evangelical churches, but even probably like less evangelical churches. Be just like telling, like, you want kids to believe the correct things, and it probably all goes back to hell anxiety, to be honest. I think that when you have such a deep-rooted fear of hell, it's really, really hard to want to take other people's beliefs seriously like that, because you're worried that if they believe the wrong thing, then they're going to go to hell. And that's just a really unhealthy way to approach the Bible.
or
Mhm.
anything,
But
or
it,
just
like,
just
or any
spirituality,
just
like any of it. Yeah.
anything. Yeah. Sorry, I was focused on the topic, Micah. My bad.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's still on topic. Like the
It is still on
Bible,
topic.
It's
I don't like
no,
to
yeah, you're
limit.
right.
I don't like to limit spirituality to just a holy text, because I
Yes.
think it should be much more than that. Even if you're a Christian, like, it should be more than just the Bible alone. Like, I guess even like throwing in like the Wesleyan, I don't the Wesleyan the Wesleyan four ways of like finding truth is like,
Quadrilateral.
yes, that thing. Yeah. It's like you've got experience, the Bible, tradition, and one other that I am forgetting.
Testimony,
I forgot,
like other people's
honestly.
testimony, pures.
Okay, I'm gonna look it up because I should be a good person to do that.
Yeah, no, my point is more, I was thinking specifically about Christianity when I was talking about that specific topic, because I'm kind of like parsing out the like specifically deconstructing the Bible kind of portion in my head. But you're right, it is like
Yeah.
also a valid thing that logically extrapolates to other areas.
Logic was the other one.
Gotcha. Yeah, I actually one of my most recent videos on the TikTok has actually been asking about like, why should I look at the Bible as being authoritative? Like, if I am like, maybe there's other people who have the information that they need to know that the Bible is authoritative, but I am not one of those people. God himself has not come to me, an authority in spiritual matters has not come to me and told me, hey, by the way, this book 100% proved legit. And so because I have not had that, I am left to consider the possibilities. And so one of the big things that I've heard a lot of people say is like, well, the truth, I've seen it in other people's lives. It's transformed their lives. It's compelling. It's transformed my life. And that's how I know. And so in a most recent TikTok video, I was like, okay, acknowledging that possibility, acknowledging that it has done that, and that might mean that God is at work in it, and not denying the possibility that God is at work in it. Here are two other possibilities, which would suggest that maybe it's not completely approved of God in its entirety, and maybe it's not the only place you can look to for God's truth. How can you help me rule out these two possibilities so that I can recognize the Bible in the same way that you do? And granted, there are a number of more possibilities than just those two. I just don't want to muddy the waters too much. I asked those questions and I haven't really gotten a good answer from anybody. But yeah, it's I forget where I was going with that.
I have a contributing thought if you can't find it.
Go for it.
Under that framework and that justification, there's a lot of self-help books and even just fiction novels that meet the same standard of authority.
Yeah.
Like it's you and even like I've heard like atheists, I think I mentioned Gaptooth like on the last episode, but his take was like, why would you not read religious texts and like learn from these other cultures and the philosophies and the ways that they interpreted the world? Because like, it's not just because you don't believe in God doesn't mean that there's not value in seeing a cultural like value set and understanding their philosophical interpretation of things. And so like you can find value and truth in a religious text and still also not believe in God. Those two don't have to be connected. So yeah, it's not a justification that holds up very well for the authority of the text itself.
That actually sorry, I'll let you finish.
No, sorry, that was the end of the thought actually.
That actually reminds me of what I was getting at, because it's along the same vein. But yeah, like one of the possibilities I mentioned is the idea that maybe if there is a God and if that God is at work, maybe that God's truth permeates all of humanity and every culture. Maybe we can find it in every place. And of course, there's also the possibility that these are just truths that humanity has discovered over time, which honestly makes a bit more sense to me, considering all of the years of barbarianism that we had to get through to get to this point. Like, it feels like if there was a God, that could have been a lot more streamlined, and a lot of that could have been circumnavigated. But who knows? If there is a God, they might have their reasons for what they did and how things panned out. I look out at the world, and like you were saying, there's self-help books and different studies that are compelling and life transforming. Like, there's a book, and I would suggest anybody read this series of books, but it's a series of books that's like How to Talk So Blank Will Listen. So you have one that's like How to Talk So Little Kids Will Listen, How to Talk So Teens Will Listen, and there might be even one for like young adults or something like that. But it is one of the most compelling transformative books I've ever read, because it talks about how you engage with children in a healthy way and how you kind of parent it's a parenting book, but the principles that it teaches are applicable to every relationship, I feel. And it's just teaching you how to engage with society in respectful ways and productive ways. And so, yeah, like, I found those books and have been compelled by them. And among many other things, looks like, ooh, Micah's computer just crashed.
Oh, there he goes. Welcome to the Christian Josiah show, everybody.
Yes, now we can talk about all the dirt we have on Micah behind his back.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
Josiah, would you like to go first?
Yeah, I hate that Micah's hair is curlier than mine. I'm actually intentionally curling my hair right now, with like lotion or whatever, like stuff that makes my hair curl. I need to wash it again today and put that stuff in.
I remember hearing recently some controversy about like the notion of having curly hair, and I don't feel like I fully understand it. So maybe that's on me. I need to look into it more. But like, it has some racial charge in like saying something about having curly hair versus wavy hair in comparison to like the texture of a black person's hair. I don't know. I heard something about that once, and I don't fully understand it.
I would have to hear the context around that.
Same.
Because like there is like there's like racial hair stuff, like in the military. It only just became like illegal to discriminate against black hair types, and same thing in like I think like 2017 it finally became illegal to hire people based off of their hair type, because like having super kinky hair or whatever, you have to well, like for one, like African people who of like African descent have to wear like a do-rag sometimes or whatever, because they were just like just gonna talk about hair while Mike is like trying to fix the Zoom call.
There you go. I just tried inviting him back in, but he asked me to give him a second. I think his computer might be like booting up or something.
Oh, okay. And like that often gets associated with, like, if you think about in movies, like when you see a gang, there's always a guy with a do-rag. Like it's not a gangster thing. It's a, like, they have to trap moisture in order to keep the hair healthy. It's a self-care thing, and like, but like we've so closely associated it with, this is like what the bad people do or whatever.
Interesting.
It's really, really gross. Yeah, there's a lot of there's racism literally everywhere.
It's everywhere.
Um,
So
but
I guess
yeah,
I just
so
bring that up.
maybe
If there are any unintended meanings or unintended offense that we get from talking about the curliness of our hair, uh, we need to look into that a little more. So apologies if that is something that we're ignorant to. But yeah, so you're
yeah.
artificially curling your
I
hair.
mean, me and Micah are both mixed race. His hair is just more like dad's, which
Mm.
is very curly. My hair gets there, but it needs a little bit of help. So I'm not necessarily artificially doing it. I'm just kind of putting the stuff in that. I mean,
Gotcha.
I'm using hair products that like mixed ethnicity people will use. Like I'm using hair products specifically for my ethnicity.
Gotcha.
Um, but yeah, I think Micah said you can invite him back in.
Okay. Yeah, my hair can be I have kind of, and I don't know if this is offensive, so apologies again, but I have what I've heard referred to as a Jufro. And so like my curly head will just, it grows out more than it grows down. I don't know at what point it'll start to grow down, but like I have to kind of force it down
Oh, okay, fair
in
enough.
order to,
You should try growing it out all the way and do like a yeah, do the wise sage with the long hair kind of vibe.
yeah, actually that's my goal because I'm working from home and I'm pretty much turning into a hermit. I'm slowly growing out my hair. My wife finds long hair, long curly hair on guys attractive. So like
Hey, bonus.
bonus there. So I figured, might as well give it a shot. I found out that if I do a side part, that it helps it to not look as terrible as it can tend to look. So, hey, Micah, welcome to Hair Talk.
Yeah, we're.
I
I
can't hear
talked
you,
about your
Micah.
hair. Yeah,
There we
join the
go.
audio, Micah. You nerd. Do you need to start recording again?
I'm recording again. My computer, I don't know.
Do you need me to
It's been
stop
doing
and
this
restart?
recently. It's starting to like crash. Just I don't know if it's overheating. It shouldn't be. Well, I'm just
Sounds like you need to maybe update your computer too.
it is updated,
Is it
I
a
think.
Mac?
It's a Mac.
Oh,
Oh.
I mean, like update the hardware.
It's new. I got it in June.
Oh,
It's a
that's
new
right. I remember you. Oh,
yeah. So
that's frustrating.
Yeah, unfortunately, Macs, you can't like work on those.
no.
Like my desktop, I need to replace the graphics card in it, but I can do that, and it'll be like a $200 repair.
I might
You know, with a MacBook or with like a Mac desktop, you just have to get a new one.
yeah, I might send it in, see if I can send it into Apple and see if they can fix it I don't know. Like it shouldn't be doing this often. It's starting to happen pretty
Right.
often now.
So, Micah, do you remember what we were talking about before your computer crashed? Because I'm having a hard time remembering.
Luckily I wasn't talking, but what were we talking about?
I think I was going on a rant about something.
I know, we'd been talking about different like people claiming authority about spiritual matters, and I'm just like I have anxiety that my
I
computer's
mean,
gonna
that's
crash
the
again.
topic, right?
That is the whole topic.
I don't remember. I have the memory of a goldfish right now.
Don't we all?
Wow. That's what 3 hours of sleep will get you.
Yeah. Let's see.
Sleep is important, everybody. Get
I
some
think.
sleep.
Oh yeah, we were talking about truth found in other places, and I think I was going on a rant about like these books that I found.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
if you want to read those books, they are
Oh,
incredible.
Yeah.
Oh, I
my
didn't even hear the books.
so there's
Yeah, he
there's a
named a few
series of books
books.
called How to Talk to Blank So They Will Listen, and so there's one like How to
Oh.
Talk to little kids, How to Talk to Teens. I think there's even one for young adults, and the principles in those books are so like compelling and effective that I think they're valuable for like talking to literally everybody because they teach you valuable skills for how to engage in relationships. And so there are just a number of things like that my wife and I have discovered, which we feel have incredibly compelling redemptive qualities to just the human condition, humanity in general. And those are things that are like, if there's a spiritual power in the world like just this redemptive spiritual power in the world, it feels like it is in those redemptive things. And each of those redemptive things has this thing in common where they are inviting you to live a more intentional life. That's kind of what spirituality has become for me. And I think I've already kind of said that, so I might be turning into a broken record at that point. But I feel like that might just be the role of spirituality. I don't know for everybody, but it feels like it might be. But
Yeah.
for me especially, it's this invitation to live more intentionally, to be more intentional about my relationships, to be more intentional about decisions made in a pandemic and stuff like that.
Yeah,
And loving people.
I definitely agree that like spirituality, at least where I am now, like should be something that helps you live, I guess, your most full life, live as your most authentic self, and whatever helps you, um, like kind of like you were saying, just live more intentionally, like with more, um, I don't want to say with more purpose or, um, I don't know. It can be something that adds a lot of beauty to your life and adds a lot of, um, I keep wanting to just say intentionality again, like,
Yeah,
but
it's a great word. I love the word intentionality
yeah, but because of
in
that,
regards to it.
yeah, like because of that, I don't think that there is one ultimate um spiritual authority because I think different things work for different people. Like different um spiritual practices are going to relate and connect and like help certain people. Like meditation, for example. There's all kinds of different meditations, like through yoga, through like, I don't know, prayer, through um every religion kind of has like these different forms of meditation, and like the different forms might connect with people in ways that actually work for them. Like the
Mhm.
ways that Christians pray may not work for a lot of people. The way that you would meditate through maybe different styles of yoga, like, might not connect with everybody or work for everybody. And so to me, that's a sign that like there is no ultimate authoritative way to do spirituality, like one way. Um,
Mhm.
Otherwise, if there was, then and there was a God who like created it to be that way, reality is not seeming to show that that's true because um
It's not like
yeah,
spelled out. Like we
yeah,
can't necessarily point any one way and then all as a collective group of humanity come to agreement that like, oh yes, this is what spirituality is supposed to be. It's left so open-ended that that's kind of just the way it feels like it's supposed to be. And I almost wonder, because I've heard a lot of people talk about how like in some videos I've mentioned or that I've made that are kind of similar to this point, they talk about, oh, that's spiritualism. And it's like I haven't not yet taken the time to dive into like understand what spiritualism is exactly, but we might have just I might have just reached that conclusion that, oh, it seems spiritualism is the most true thing for the time. I don't really know what spiritualism is yet. So but yeah,
yeah,
I feel like
Um,
that's the truth that I'm finding most with the knowledge and information that I have right now. The idea that that authority is not in one central location but spread out, if there is any, or if it's just the truth that we've revealed from the human experience over time and there's no God involved. I feel like it's just in that space of redemptive spirituality, what works for people. It's not as specific.
yeah,
I feel like spiritualism may be a misnomer.
Okay.
Because I've worked with pagans before, and that's not a word that I've ever heard. I looked it up. The philosophy is the doctrine that the spirit exists as distinct from matter, or that spirit is the only reality. So basically,
Okay.
it's either there are spirits or just idealism. I mean, that's what spirit is the only reality kind of means, is that there's no physical material world.
Gotcha.
It's
Okay.
all an illusion. But yeah, I wrote down a point earlier because I knew I'd forget it, and it's a good thing because I forgot what I wrote down. Um,
perfect.
oh yeah, that's right. So I was thinking about it, and I kind of brought the science thing back to the philosophy thing, and I remembered a thought that I had that actually led to a lot of my deconstruction. Um, in high school, I remember studying a lot because I've always believed that my beliefs should correspond with reality. That's what truth is. Truth is that which corresponds with reality, is the best definition that I can give truth.
Mhm.
Or fact even. Maybe fact is like a better, that's a better
Yeah,
definition for
yeah.
fact. But anyway, so I always believed that if Christianity is true, if God exists, if God created the universe to be a certain way, then following those things should make the world a better place. Because you should be acting in accordance with how it was designed. That naturally, if you're following the instruction manual, it works as intended.
Mhm.
And so when something doesn't work as intended, I questioned it a lot, like a lot. And that's what led me to being like gay marriage should be legal while I was still a conservative,
Wow.
because I was like, I don't, yeah. Well, also because that's not how laws are made. And I was like, I literally can't think of a legal reason why there shouldn't be gay marriage. Like, I
Yeah.
don't know. It's just maybe
Mhm.
it doesn't matter that much. And so, like, before it was legalized in 2015, I came to that conclusion while I was still like a really strong conservative.
Yeah.
Just because I didn't see a
Yeah.
reason to force that law on people. Anyway, that's different. But basically, that like you can test philosophies by how they affect your life. Uh, it
Absolutely.
is a personal
Yeah.
thing, and it's gonna suck because if you like me, for the past year, go through parsing out different possibilities and different philosophies and trying to figure out like what is going to improve your life, especially if you've been taught your entire life that only one philosophy will ever improve your life,
Yeah.
and then you kind of
Mm.
lose the meaning in that. It's very scary, and it's a lot to have to test those things out. But if you do test them out, and if something negatively affects your life, then that is not your truth. Maybe somebody else found help with it, but that's not going to be something that works for you. And so I think that allows for that subjectivity, by just saying, like, how does this affect my life? And also, how does it affect other people's lives? Because that's another thing that I think about. Like, if my belief, like, there's a reason that I'm a communist. I don't like when people starve. Um, and so, like, thinking about how the belief affects the people around you and yourself, and trying to figure out whether that's a good thing or a bad thing.
Yeah.
And honestly, we'll never get like 100% confident answer, because there will always be like a positive or negative.
Mm.
I didn't get that perfection with Christianity, and I'm not going to expect to get it with any other philosophy. I'm going to expect there to be some rocky roads that I have to go down, and that's just what life is.
Yeah.
But that's kind of, to me, finding the truth in those philosophies. So that's not necessarily related to like authority on things, but
Mm-hmm.
how seriously you take the things that you hear when you are maybe plotting that graph
Yeah.
of different things that you've heard and trying to figure out what works best for you. It
Mm.
really is about what works best for you.
Yeah.
I agree.
So I guess I would say you're the authority, is
Ayo.
maybe what I'm saying.
Yeah,
there.
like you are the authority.
Power to the people.
Yeah, like you're the authority for your own spiritual um journey, I guess. Like,
Experience.
yeah. But like you can't be the authority for other people's.
Absolutely. Took
You
the
can
words
talk
right out of my
about
mouth.
yeah, like you can talk about your own, and if other people resonate with that and want to emulate you or learn from you and like try that in their own life, they are still the ones in the authority of their own spirituality. They're trying something that maybe you talked about, suggested, whatever. But if it works for them, it works for them, and they're going to get to decide that on their own. And if it doesn't, then they're the authority to say that does not work for me. Um,
Yeah, 100%.
yeah. And so I
Mhm.
think that's one thing that is really interesting that happens in it happens in cults and in evangelical Christianity is like you pawn off your own authority of your own spirituality to somebody else to tell you what is right and wrong and what is the right way to do spirituality and what's the wrong way. And if it's not working for you, then you are the one, they tell you that you are the one who's broken, right? Because it's
Mm.
supposed to work for everybody. But if it doesn't work for you, then there must be something wrong with you. There's something you're hiding. But because you have given your authority to somebody else, then you don't have the capacity to like kind of decipher that, and to even be able to decide that for yourself, unless you take that authority away. And basically, once you do that, then they don't want to do it. They don't want anything to do with you anymore, because it's the whole system like that they've set up, is that you don't have your own authority. Here's the thought I had. So a very common thing that I see whenever we start talking about authority and who has the authority of like truth, spirituality, all that stuff, coming from conservative evangelicalism, is the accusation of, as we talk about these things, the accusation gets thrown out as like, oh, well, you're making truth claims. So like you are claiming to be an authority, as opposed to these people who have like spent their life studying the Bible and think that is, the ultimate truth and like all this stuff. And even though we're sitting here saying like, I don't think there is one ultimate authority, and like, so, that would exclude you as the theologian, Theo bro talking to me. Yeah, I guess like, what was my question? I guess, how do we maybe engage in that kind of conversation where somebody believes that there's like an ultimate authority and they are making authoritative claims, even though they're hiding under the guise of like the Bible or God. And then they accuse us maybe of making authority claims. Are we making authority claims or truth claims, or like what are we doing?
I have actually really been intentional, or I'm trying to be really intentional about veering my content away from a position where I'm just like making arguments and like trying to make, I'm veering away from trying to make arguments and more towards just asking genuine questions, trying to open the door for conversation.
Yeah.
And I feel I've managed to avoid, I feel, those sorts of comments or interactions because I am very intentional about not making any claims. I'm just asking questions and then suggesting, hey, based upon this information that I have, these are the different possibilities I see. And sometimes when I present the possibilities allotted by my limited knowledge and understanding, people take those possibilities as claims.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, hey, using the information I have, what you're saying may or may not be a possibility. And then these are some other possibilities. How do I rule out these other possibilities? Because with the information I have right now, I can't rule them out. So I can't come to completely agree with you. And just taking that approach where I'm not making any claims and because I really honestly don't know a whole lot. I mean, despite 10 years of studying and looking into theology and apologetics, I found that I know very little. And I feel like that's just homage to the whole idea of like, the more you know, the more you realize you don't know. And so I'm just at that point where it's like, okay, I'm just going to ask you about it. And then I'm going to take the information you give me and tell you what conclusions I can possibly arrive at. And I kind of got to pick my battles, like, especially when it comes to like the Bible and whether or not it's truly authoritative. Like I could bring up the whole, like, well, how do we even know God was a part of it kind of thing, and bring into question the existence of God. But sometimes, especially like in the most recent TikTok video I did, I'm just focusing in on like, okay, let's assume that there's a God. Let's assume God is at work. That still does not eliminate all of the possibilities, which would suggest that the Bible might not be completely authoritative and God's only holy word and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I think that's my opinion on it, is that I just try not to make arguments or claims.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts, Josiah?
So I think that this is why evangelicals fundamentally misunderstand something like critical race theory, or even like just atheism in general, things that offer a critical analysis and ask questions. Those questions get turned into truth claims, which we must now fight to the death over. That's not how any of that stuff works. In like, if we go outside of theology and go into philosophy, the best part of philosophy is the discussion and the asking of questions and the posing of ideas, and even just like directly contradicting somebody. Like I often adopted the contrarian position. I still do, because when you do that in like a friendly, good faith discussion, you can, like, first of all, I'm very willing to admit that I'm wrong, or I'm very willing to back off of a position. So like, I'm not just the annoying devil advocate, bro. But like you can reach truth through those discussions. And when somebody comes at you with that claim, it's never in good faith.
No.
I wouldn't ever take that as like a good faith argument, because if they say that, it's like you kind of brushed at it. Like, they would also have to discount their own talking point to say that. Like, if you raise this standard at me, then we're not having this discussion because neither of us have authority to speak on it, or we can just have this discussion. We can just talk about it and like not get so like,
exactly. It's not a debate. Yeah. And then like, I think that often, like I said, like they're kind of hiding behind the guise of like, they genuinely believe this is the right interpretation of the Bible or of God, right? Like this is the correct one. And so they're saying, I'm not saying it. The Bible says it, like that's the classic line. And so, but I mean, I guess what we were saying
that's
is like,
to that.
Yeah. Like people have to recognize their own bias and their own, like, hey, this is maybe like, you think that's what the Bible says, but that is your opinion still. Like you can't hide behind that. And to do that is dishonest.
I feel like that's the beauty of like asking questions, because then when you start asking questions like, okay, well, why do you feel like the Bible says this? Why do you feel like the Bible's authoritative in this? It's forcing them to look upon their understanding. And if they're leaning upon an authority figure of like, oh, well, this person believes it, then you're like, okay, well, then teach me so that I can believe and agree with you, or believe and agree with that person. What information have they shared with you that you can share with me to bring me to that same conclusion? And now you're forcing them to look at what these people are actually saying and critically think and analyze it, and then present it in a way where they're not just leaning upon an authority figure. They have to try and understand it and present it they have to actually look to see, is this an authoritative claim? I feel like that's where it becomes extremely helpful.
Yeah. I think there's also like, people will say pastors have trained and studied to learn how to do this. But a lot of the time, they're not. They're basically trained to learn how to interpret the Bible in a way that they reach the same conclusion as their teacher.
Yeah.
Not everybody. Like there's obviously some seminaries that are not, or there's teachers specifically who are not like that, and those teachers are fantastic. But a lot of places where people can go to seminary or study the Bible will just teach them to become parrots, basically. And I've seen this literally happen to a friend, where it's like, hey, you like you you just say the things that everybody else says. It feels kind of shallow. Like I've heard this message in many a church, and it feels like we're not really engaging in theological study.
And I feel like that would be fine. I mean, especially if there is some legitimate standard of like absolute truth that everybody can agree upon. But the problem is, you start asking questions about those parroted statements, and the level of understanding as to why those things are the way they are, eventually it just boils down to, well, that's just the way it is. And I feel like that's where the real issue is. Like,
this is why I love the rabbinical debates, because they had opposing viewpoints and they debated these things, and it was part of their theology to debate these things. Like to go back to the Pastor Craig thing, like if you go to multiple pastors and they're all saying the exact same thing, you might start to think, okay, well, this is that because it's true. They're all saying this because it's true. But that excludes the possibility that they just were all taught to read the Bible the same way, and that one person who decided that it should be interpreted that way was not correct.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's an ad populum argument, but
I think I should correct what I was
Oh.
saying, in that, like, in light of what you just said, yeah, it would be the matter of like, oh well, that's just the way it is, if it was like if you could really reach that like objective understanding of like, oh yes, this is just the way it is. But the problem is, oftentimes if you dive into and you take the time to upturn, like if you put in the personal effort to consider what other possibilities might be able to exist in that space, you can usually find something. And that's the trouble. Like, I remember specifically having a conversation with a professor in apologetics and mathematics about the cosmological argument. And we were going back and forth, and we had explored all of the usual rebuttals that I've heard atheists give. And then I went out of my way to come up with my own rebuttal. And it was this whole idea of like, well, if we're opening the door to this source for our reality and morality being in an external reality that operates by different rules, we are literally opening the door to an infinite number of possibilities. We cannot say that that source has to be an intelligent being, because we have no idea if an intelligence is required for these things to come about when we're speaking about a reality that operates by different laws and logic. And then the question he asked me is like, well, why would we bother bringing that up if the atheists aren't bringing that up? And I was like, well, there you have it. That's where that intellectual, like, you're being, what's the word I'm looking for? Intellectual integrity breaks down, because yeah, the intellectual integrity breaks down because it's like, all you're looking to do is win. You're not actually seeking truth. And that bothers me personally.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. I think a lot of people who make accusations about people like, oh, you're making truth claims is somewhat projecting, not somewhat, often it is, because they are making truth claims and hiding behind some fancy language or a degree that taught them to, read something a certain way. And from what I've found, like a lot of those places, when they teach you, they're almost teaching you apologetics on this one interpretive lens. And so like, as a pastor, you might understand a lot more about this one interpretive lens and how to defend it and argue it, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's true. And it doesn't necessarily make you an authority to speak on it. It just makes you able to, I guess, try to defend it and argue with it. But I don't think that's a great approach to truth, is to assume one position or like just be totally 100% bought into it. And then all you ever do is learn how to defend the one position.
Absolutely.
And not question it. Like the idea, even as we said earlier, that questions are somewhat of a threat, that then like, it's like, I just asked a question. No, you're making a truth claim. Now I'm going to disprove your question. It's like, it's a question. There's nothing to disprove. It's something to discuss. But there's such an unwillingness.
I mean, you could rule out a possibility that's brought up, but I mean, that's the tendency. It's not, oh, we're going to rule this out. It's, oh, you have to prove it before you can bring it up. It's like, but all the proof that you've brought to the table also could lead to this conclusion alongside the conclusion that you're proposing. So my possibility that I presented is just as valid as the possibility you've presented, given the information you've provided. So now we have to try and rule one out by either bringing more information to the table, thinking more critically, what have you. You can't just say, oh, you have to prove that, because the proof behind it's the same amount of proof behind your claim.
Yeah, there's definitely a really high level of toxicity in the discussion that's created when somebody believes that any affront to their religion is like a personal attack. It's very tribalistic. And
or even
I'm just,
a direct attack at God or something. Yeah.
yeah,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. That sort of like, don't, like, who are you to question God or whatever, you know? Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm one of the characters in the Bible who did that all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you also get into the deification of human understanding again.
You want to
We should
wrap
probably
it up?
wrap up.
Let's wrap up. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, sounds good. We got to
but
keep
yeah,
Christian around the whole time.
we did. Yeah. So this was,
Yeah. Sorry,
no,
Kelly.
I think this is a really good discussion because like the idea of authority gets brought up a lot, and like also the once you're out of the bubble, and you're like, well, who do I trust? Trust yourself, I guess. Like maybe that's kind of the
Yeah,
bottom line of
definitely.
this is like, nobody holds ultimate authority, so don't give them ultimate authority. Even if you trust them and they say a lot of good things, they can still be wrong on things. So like,
Right. Also, trust people who encourage you towards resources. Not people who say do your own research, but people who have genuine things to say and have researched the things and can give resources.
Yeah. Can provide all the
where
sources.
you can study a little bit more into what they're looking at. People who care about you. Even in like a nebulous sense, like in the sense that they generally care about people and want people to prosper.
Yes.
And yeah, I would add that in there too, because I think that's important when you're like listening to people online or whatever.
I think another way, like, to further emphasize what you just said, trust people who leave the door open for criticism.
yeah,
Like the people who are honest enough to show you all of the information behind their train of thoughts and their conclusion, all of the sources, so that you can then go in and critically analyze those things and arrive at your own conclusion. Like,
yeah,
those are the probably the people that are more trustworthy, as opposed to the people who like just spew out a bunch of things, call it fact, and say you have to just trust me, otherwise you are being intellectually stupid or you're rejecting reality.
yeah.
Right.
With that, we do not claim to be authorities on anything. You know, we're discussing these things, and you know, we're talking about our own experience and things that resonate with us. And if you would like to continue that conversation, then where can people find us?
I'm at Something Matters on TikTok.
I'm at Truth Voyager on TikTok.
And I am at Pondering Together on TikTok. That is really our main form of connecting with us.
Well, also there's a YouTube version of this podcast where comments are available, so you can totally leave comments there and I will read over those. You can also leave reviews on Apple Podcasts, and I usually look there for reviews. Speaking of which, we got a new review and an update to the previous review, but we are running really short on time, so maybe we'll talk about that next time.
Got it.
Sounds
cool. Yeah, and we also have our combined TikTok called, at Morning Ponderings.
Which I need to post more content to. I'm so sorry to everybody who follows that account.
It's been a crazy season. Maybe we'll get there eventually. But thank you all for listening. And
if you'd like to support us, there's a link in the description of videos and episodes. So take a look at that too.
Good call. Yep. Thank you all for listening, and we will talk to y'all next time. Have a great day.
Yes, have a wonderful one.
Bye.